Here are the top stories for today, June 13, 2019. The Department of Foreign Affairs has filed a diplomatic protest against China on the recent collision between a Chinese and Filipino fishing vessel in the West Philippine Sea. The DFA seeks the speedy arrest of a policeman who allegedly raped a Filipino household worker in Kuwait. Filipinos in Hong Kong are warned to be careful as protests escalate in Hong Kong. And the Department of Health encourages the public to donate blood voluntarily.
Good day, I'm William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. The Department of National Defense is also calling for an investigation into the collision and sinking of a Filipino fishing boat by a Chinese vessel near Recto Bank. Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana also wants diplomatic steps to be taken to prevent a repeat of the incident. Lorenzana condemned what he called the cowardly action of the Chinese boat and its crew. The Chinese vessel reportedly ran into the Filipino fishing boat on the night of June 9, leaving the 22 crew floundering in the water. Lorenzana said a Vietnamese fishing vessel, which was in the vicinity, rescued the said fishermen. In a phone interview, DND spokesperson Arsenio Andolong said the rescued fishermen were the ones who claimed that it was the Chinese boat that hit and sank their vessel. Meanwhile, the Department of Foreign Affairs is waiting for an official report from the National Task Force for the West Philippine Sea on the incident at Recto Bank. Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. said he will base his diplomatic protest on the result of the inquiry. Malacanang asked Chinese authorities on Wednesday to sanction a Chinese fishing vessel crew which allegedly abandoned a sinking Filipino fishing boat after a recent collision in Recto Bank in the West Philippine Sea. Rom Dulfo has the story.
Malacanang on Wednesday called for an investigation into the sinking of a Filipino fishing boat in the West Philippine Sea. Presidential spokesperson Sal Panelo said it supports the view of Lorenzana, who denounced the Chinese crew's actions and called for a probe on the incident. On June 9, a Chinese vessel collided with the boat FB Gimber 1 that is anchored near Recto Bank and left the 22 Filipino crew at sea. They were eventually rescued by a nearby Vietnamese vessel. Panelo said whether the collision was accidental or intentional, common decency and the dictates of humanity require the immediate saving of the crew of the downed Philippine vessel. He described the abandonment of the Chinese crew as uncivilized and outrageous, noting that the crew of the Chinese vessel should not have left the injured party without any aid. The AFP meanwhile insists the Chinese vessel intentionally rammed the Filipino boat. AFP Western Command spokesperson Lieutenant Colonel Stephen Penetrante said the Chinese vessel did not stop to help the crew after ramming into the stationary boat in a manner similar to a hit and run. Western Command is doing an inquiry to determine how the incident happened and in preparation for a possible diplomatic protest. Panelo meanwhile assured that government continues to provide aid to the Filipino crewmen who were rescued from the collision. He also thanked the Vietnamese fishing vessel in the vicinity, which rescued 22 Filipino fishermen. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Rom Dulfo.
The Department of Foreign Affairs has filed a diplomatic protest against China on the recent collision between a Chinese and Filipino fishing vessel in Recto Bank in the West Philippine Sea. It resulted in the sinking of the Filipino boat. Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. bared Thursday on his official Twitter account that he fired off a diplomatic protest yesterday. The agency has yet to provide details on the incident, but Locsin described it as a case of hit and run. Defense Chief Delfin Lorenzana said the Chinese vessel immediately left the scene, abandoning the 22 Filipino crewmen to the mercy of the elements. As of posting, the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs has not yet issued any comment. The Philippine government is hoping for the speedy arrest of the suspect in the rape case of a Filipina household worker in Kuwait. Foreign Affairs Assistant Secretary Emmanuel Fernandez said the Philippine Embassy in Kuwait continues to monitor the case with local authorities in the Gulf state. Kuwaiti authorities have issued a warrant of arrest against rape suspect Fayed Nasser Hamad Al-Ajmi, a 22-year-old Kuwaiti police officer. The Department of Foreign Affairs identified Al-Ajmi as the one who assisted the victim's finger scanning registration at the airport upon her arrival on June 4. Charge d'Affaires Mod Nurdin Lomondot said it was alleged that Al-Ajmi later kidnapped and assaulted the Filipina. The PNP declares yesterday's Independence Day celebration as generally peaceful. Meanwhile, a transport group joins calls against the proposed UV Express point-to-point operation. More on this and other news around the metro from Bench Bondok.
The Philippine National Police said the June 12 Independence Day celebration nationwide was generally peaceful. Aside from minor protest rallies at the U.S. Embassy in Manila and the Chinese Embassy in Makati, PNP spokesperson Colonel Bernard Banak said no untoward incident was reported around the country. The PNP also announced the lifting of the election gun ban at midnight of June 12, which means legitimate and licensed gun owners can now carry their firearms outside of their residences. Meanwhile, transport group Stop and Go Coalition seeks to question the memorandum circular of the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board, which orders UV Express vehicles to implement point-to-point operations. The group said the LTFRB policy negatively affects UV Express drivers and commuters. It also slammed the lack of consultation from the LTFRB. The coalition filed a temporary restraining order and writ of preliminary mandatory injunction before the Quezon City Regional Trial Court. The UV Express order was suspended until June 15. In other news, the National Water Resources Board approved the allocation of 46 cubic meters per second from Angat Dam for the Metropolitan Water Works and Sewerage System this June. As of 6 a.m., Angat Dam's water level was at 164 meters or 15.98 meters lower than its minimum operating level of 180 meters. The looming shortage persists due to El Nino. In case the dam's water level continues to drop, Angat Technical Working Group will enforce operational measures to maintain the 46 cubic meters per second allocation. The NWRB assures Metro Manila will still have enough water even if Angat Dam's level drops below normal. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Bench Bondo.
Still to come, Filipinos in Hong Kong are warned to be careful as protests escalate in the country. 4 suspected thieves are killed in a shootout with police in Pampanga. More on these when the PNA Newsroom continues.
Ito ang Duterte on Duty. Ulat sa ginagawa ng Presidente. May 27, Lunes, Malacanang. Pinanumpa ni Pangulong Rodrigo Roa Duterte ang bagong talagang government officials mula sa iba't ibang sangay ng gobyerno. Pinanumpa niya rin si General Benjamin Madrigal Jr. bilang AFP Chief of Staff at mga bagong talagang general at flag officers. May 29, Miyerkules, Tokyo, Japan. Dumalo ang Pangulo sa Business Forum kasama ang Japanese Business Delegation at investors. Sinaksihan din niya ang paglagda ng Japanese at Filipino Business Delegation sa 7 business agreements at 19 na letters of intent na abot sa halos 300 billion pesos. Sinundan ito na magkahiwalay na roundtable meeting kasama ang ilang Japanese companies at Japanese tourism partners. May 30, Huwebes, Japan. Hindi nalimutan ng Pangulo na bisitahin ang Filipino community sa Tokyo na mainit naman siyang tinanggap. May 31, Biyernes. Sa ikatlong araw ng Pangulo sa Japan, nag-courtesy call sa kanya ang mga opisyales ng Japan-Philippine Parliamentarians Friendship League. Nagsalita si Pangulong Duterte sa Nikkei's 25th International Conference of the Future of Asia. Malugod siyang tinanggap ni Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe sa opisina nito sa Tokyo, kung saan naganap ang summit meeting na dinaluhan ng dalawang leader at kani-kanilang delegasyon.
It is an immense pleasure for me to welcome my special friend, President Duterte, here at my official residence once again, where we just had our 7th summit meeting. Japan is proud to be the largest partner supporting President Duterte's Build, Build, Build program to actively develop infrastructure. We will continue to strongly support the sustainable economic development of the Philippines through assistance in quality infrastructure.
I am pleased with the growing interest and confidence in the Philippines as a preferred trade and investment destination by Japanese businesses. I welcome Japan's reaffirmation of support for my government's flagship Big, Big, Big. I am grateful for Japan's fresh commitment of around 25 billion yen for the development of Mindanao's road network, vocational training facilities, and equipment and other projects.
Kinagabihan ay isang state banquet ang hinihanda ni Prime Minister Shinzo Abe para kay Pangulong Duterte at sa Philippine delegation.
Japan is a friend closer than a brother. This is no mere pronouncement. This is truth. As our actions and deeds continue to define, that is a bond marked by honor and will endure through time.
Ako po si Secretary Martin Andanar at ito ang Duterte on Duty. Abangan sa susunod na linggo ang mga gagawin ng Pangulo.
Foreign affairs officials have advised Filipinos in Hong Kong to remain vigilant and to exercise extreme caution amid the mass protests happening in the country. The Philippine Consulate General in Hong Kong have asked Filipinos to keep away from demonstration areas, particularly near the Legislative Complex in Admiralty and in Tamar Park. Foreign Affairs Assistant Secretary Emmanuel Fernandez also advised Filipinos to reschedule their consular transactions at the Consulate General, which is located near the demonstration areas. He said the Consulate General in Hong Kong continues to monitor the situation as it stands ready to provide assistance if needed. Protests have exploded over an extradition bill being pushed that critics said would violate the territory's autonomy. The mass actions have turned violent as hundreds of police pushed back against the protesters at the Legislative Council. The Department of Labor and Employment is planning to decrease the deployment of nurses to other countries. Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello III said on Wednesday that there is a need for nurses that will look after Filipino patients, especially senior citizens. He noted that he is contemplating on the plan after a dialogue with the Philippine Nurses Association, who sought his assistance to address the shortage of nurses in the country. Despite a perceived oversupply of nurses, Bello said graduates who have passed the board only train for 2 years here and then go abroad. Bello said the government should do something by increasing the salaries of nurses for them to stay in the country. Filipino nurses are in demand in countries in Europe, the Middle East, among others. Earlier this year, the government implemented a slowdown in sending construction workers to other countries to address the reported manpower shortage in the local construction industry stemming from the Build, Build, Build program. Finance Secretary Carlos Dominguez III has ordered a study on ways to actively engage lawmakers of the incoming Congress to speed up the approval of the rest of the Duterte administration's tax reform packages. Congress has yet to pass Package 2, which will lower the corporate income tax and modernize the fiscal incentives regime. Package 3, which institutes reforms in the property valuation system, and Package 4, which rationalizes capital income taxation. Also part of the agenda of the Budget Department include improving tax collection from Philippine offshore gaming operators, privatizing idle state assets, and increasing the dividend contributions of government-owned and controlled corporations. Dominguez also instructed finance officials to help fully implement the Customs Modernization and Tariff Act, the fuel marking program, and the rice tariffication law. He said they should also fully explain to lawmakers why some bills, particularly those that aim to grant tax exemptions and other perks, would prove to be ill-advised and fiscally unwise in the long run. San Miguel Corporation targets to open a portion of MRT Line 7 by end of 2021 amid right-of-way issues. SMC President and Chief Operating Officer Ramon Ang said the construction of the MRT project is in full swing despite some problems on Row and Train Depot. The MRT-7 project is a 23-kilometer elevated railway line with 14 stations from San Jose del Monte, Bulacan to North Avenue in Quezon City. Ang said they have agreed with the Transportation Secretary Arthur Tugade to initially open the first 20 kilometers by the end of 2021, while its full operations is targeted a year after. The 20-kilometer portion of the project stretches from the North EDSA MRT-LRT Common Station to Fairview in Quezon City. 4 robbery suspects were killed in a firefight with police at Timoteo Road in Sitio Dudurot, Palige, Barangay Colgante, Apalit, Pampanga this morning. Apalit Police Chief Elmer Decena said the suspects had robbed a convenience store at the Sitio Pampanga branch and escaped on board a Toyota Innova. Police launched a hot pursuit operation against the suspects, who then engaged them in a gunfight. The yet-to-be-identified suspects yielded 2 caliber .45 pistols, a 9mm gun, and an undetermined amount of cash. Decena said the suspects were involved in 6 other incidents of robbery. Filipinos in the provinces held their own solemn commemorations of Independence Day. Let's take a look on how they celebrated Independence Day. Janice Cave has the story.
In Bulacan, House Speaker Gloria Macapagal Arroyo on Wednesday joined the celebration of the 121st Independence Day held at the patio of the historic Baraswain Church in Malolos City. Arroyo called on the Filipinos to take care of the freedom and independence which the country's forefathers fought for 121 years ago. In line with this, Governor Wilhelmino C. Alvarado said Filipinos, despite being free, should fight, stand up for justice, and value the true meaning of freedom. In Bataan, Samal Mayor Jean De La Fuente led the wreath-laying at the foot of Dr. Jose Rizal's monument after different Philippine flags were paraded to show its evolution. De La Fuente also administered an oath to Mayor-elect Aida Macalinaw and 4 out of 8 new members of the Sangguniang Bayan. Bataan 1st District Representative Geraldine Roman urged everyone not only to think of oneself but to also be concerned with the welfare of others. In Pangasinan, a colorful paper quill mosaic centerpiece was presented to the public in SM City Rosales. This is to pay tribute to the Philippine flag and some famous tourist destinations. The mosaic features the Our Lady of Manaoag Church, the 100 Islands National Park in Alaminos City, the Lighthouse in Bolinao, Mount Balungaw, the St. Vincent Ferrer statue. It also showcased corn as the second top farm product of the province. In Zamboanga City, residents are called to stay united and continue to love and defend the city. This as they celebrated the Independence Day. Mayor Maria Isabel Climacos Salazar also reminded everyone to always protect the interest of the majority instead of personal interests. She also recognized the heroism of General Vicente Alvarez, a Zamboangueño general who led the revolution which forced the surrender of the last Spanish Governor-General of the Philippines, Diego de los Rios, on May 18, 1899. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Janice Cave.
Up next, the Department of Health encourages the public to donate blood voluntarily. An artist depicts daily Filipino life in 8-bit pixel art. The PNA Newsroom returns after these reminders.
The Environment, Tourism and Interior Departments recommended to close Boracay for 6 months.
To address issues such as illegal structures and faulty drainage systems that is affecting Boracay's prized beach.
The last time na nandito is 2017. It's actually crowded. Sobrang dami ng tao. Everywhere, makikita mo talaga bars and drinks and makalat talaga.
We had more cases of skin disease. We had more cases of diarrhea.
So nagkasama-sama lahat ng mga agencies, tiningnan ano ba ang plano natin sa Boracay, compliance on Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, at saka yung ating environmental compliance.
When they started demolishing, we saw that there was action, that they put their money where their mouth is.
Lahat ng nagamit na tubig ng customer, we collect it through our sewer lines and then it goes through a treatment process sa treatment plant.
It was nice that it happened. Finally, Boracay got the attention it is in deep need of.
I think a lot of work was done during the closure. The water is clear, the oceans are clean, there seems to be a lot of wildlife returning. We had, for the first time in 10 years, we had turtles hatching on the beach a couple of days ago.
During the closure, you could see like the eagles came back and everything that we have had for a long time.
Pumasyal pa nga yung mga kondito udanding, galing na Cebu.
In the end, it's a good thing, yes. It was hard for us, but it was also a wake-up call.
The beach was cleaned up and is officially set to reopen on October 26th.
Wala lang na kumakain sa beach, bawal nang manigarilyo.
Gumanda yung isla namin as in bumalik sa dati na ambience.
We teach kids about pollution, solid waste management, because they're the ones who will sustain all the things that we're doing now.
The Department of Health on Tuesday urged the public to take part in its campaign to save lives through voluntary blood donation. The DOH is celebrating World Blood Donor Day on June 14 in gratitude to voluntary unpaid blood donors. Health Secretary Francisco Duque III said the DOH has received 1 million blood units. The department's goal is to meet 100% of voluntary, non-remunerated blood donations by 2020. Senator and Philippine Red Cross Chair Richard Gordon highlighted the need for additional blood banks and increased awareness about the importance of regular blood donations. Gordon also appealed to private hospitals to stop selling blood or require the collection of blood from donors before giving it to patients. World Health Organization Country Representative Gundo Weiler congratulated the DOH and PRC for the increased number of blood collections from 2017 to 2018 due to their continuous public awareness campaign. And in our foreign news, the race to choose a new prime minister officially started Monday, with 10 hopefuls bidding to win the biggest job in British politics. The chosen leader will automatically become prime minister, though Queen Elizabeth II has to approve the appointment. May's failure to deliver a Brexit deal to bring Britain out of the European Union was the reason for her exit last week as leader of the Conservative Party. Former Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson remains favorite to win the race. Johnson was the first in the lineup of contenders to say he would seek a deal with the EU, but would be prepared to leave on October 31st with no deal. Another frontrunner is Johnson's successor, Jeremy Hunt, who opposes provoking a general election before the government had delivered Brexit. Environment Secretary Michael Gove is also in the lineup, being critical of Johnson's deal or no deal strategy. Completing the list are Health Secretary Matt Hancock, Home Secretary Sajid Javis, former Brexit Secretary Dominic Raab, International Development Secretary Rory Stewart, former Leader of the Commons Andrea Leadsom, former Minister Esther McVey, and backbencher Mark Harper. In sports, Sean Anthony delivered the clutch points in the stretch and enabled Northport to hold off Magnolia and Pambansang Manok in the PBA Commissioner's Cup on Wednesday. The likes of Paulo Taha, Jonathan Gray, Mo Tautua, and even Nico Elorde led the other Northport players and made up for the absence of Stanley Pringle and the generally listless import Prince Ibe. Ian Sangalang led all scorers with 21 points and added 10 rebounds. Anthony made 22 points, Taha added 16 points, Tautua and Gray 14 apiece, and Elorde had 12. Meanwhile, TNT Katropas RR Pogoy started a three-point party to turn back the Barangay Ginebra Kings. The Cebuano gunner fired 10 of 18 trays to make a career-high 38 points. Terrence Jones finished with triple-double numbers to set up Pogoy's three-pointers, making 17 points, 14 rebounds, and 16 assists. Jason Castro, Don Troliano, and Troy Rosario also delivered double-digit outputs. As we look back at Independence Day, we tend to gloss over the simple things in life that we now enjoy because of our freedom. An artist has shown his appreciation for these little things with his artworks on daily Filipino life. Joyce Cudis with the story.
As Filipinos proclaim their gratitude to the heroes who fought for the country's independence, there have been a lot of things that changed in the way they express their thanks to these iconic figures. One of these expressions of gratitude is translated into art. 17-year-old pixel artist and illustrator Paul Timothy Sabado prepared for his social media post in time for the 121st celebration of Philippines Independence Day. His artworks are common sight all over Metro Manila, and some of the videos he made are done via pixel art animation. The pixel arts depict the scenes he sees when going to places and running errands. Each consists of a typical street scene, from sidewalk food stalls to the breathtaking view of Manila Bay. Sabado said what inspired him to create the series of animation is the aesthetic and simplicity of the movements he notices whenever he roams around the busy streets of the metropolis. As of posting, Sabado's post already reached almost 7,000 retweets and 1,000 favorites. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Joyce Cudis.
Tomorrow's weather forecast from Pag-asa show that Ilocos region, Batanes, Babuyan group of islands, Zambales, and Bataan will experience cloudy skies and scattered rains and thunderstorms caused by southwest monsoon. Possible flash floods or landslides may occur during these severe thunderstorms. Meanwhile, let's check out our weather forecast for Metro Manila and the rest of the country. Let's take another look at today's biggest stories.
The Department of Foreign Affairs has filed a diplomatic protest against China on the recent collision between a Chinese and Filipino fishing vessel in the West Philippine Sea. The DFA seeks the speedy arrest of a policeman who allegedly raped a Filipino household worker in Kuwait. Filipinos in Hong Kong are warned to be careful as protests escalate in Hong Kong, and the Department of Health encourages the public to donate blood voluntarily.
Thank you for watching another edition of the PNA Newsroom. To check out these and other stories, visit the PNA website or follow the Philippine News Agency on Facebook and Twitter. For more stories about the government and how it serves the Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. And that's your daily dose of the latest news and information that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, I am William Theo. Good day.